in this lesson, we'll add a little bit of detail to the canopy area. So we want to work with this area where the canopy is going to be. So I want to add kind of a little bit of a lip in here. So let's turn off the hyperNURBS. And we don't have the geometry yet to do that. So in order to add that, we'll go ahead and use our knife. So we'll go ahead and activate our knife, and I'm going to use loop. I'm just going to add a couple of loops here. So we'll add one right there, and then maybe one right there. Now what we can do is select our polygons, and I want to select the entire loop. So if you remember, we'll go to loop selection, select that entire loop, okay, just like that. And now let's go ahead and extrude this out. So we'll go ahead and extrude it in here. I have the edge angle off here because actually we're working with polygons, so we don't need that. But I do want to change the offset a little and also add a few subdivisions so it's nice and sharp. Okay. So you want to get something like that. Now we can turn back our hyperNURBS and see how that looks. So let me go ahead and turn off our lines. So now we have that sort of lip inside there, which just makes it look a little bit more realistic. Okay, where the canopy is going to actually sit on. Now, for the canopy itself, let's go ahead and turn that on, and let's add some smoothing. Now, normally when we drop in a generator, it's going to pop to the top of our objects manager. So what I want to do is actually hit Control and hit that, and it'll pop down here. So I have the hyperNURBS. I can drop the canopy in there and see how that looks. Okay, so it's looking pretty good. Okay, so I want to add a little bit of thickness, and I also want to add kind of a rim around this. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go ahead and take our canopy. I'll take the polygons, and let's go ahead and do an extrude inner. Just a very small amount, okay? And then I'm going to go ahead and give the whole thing some thickness. So we'll just select everything. Let's just do an extrude. I want to give it a little bit of thickness. Okay, now you can see in this case, I'm going to push it down into the surface here. In this case, you can see that I'm losing the outer geometry. This is where we need to turn on that create caps, which will give us that cap back. Okay, let me go ahead and pull that back in a little bit. I'm going to take down the number of divisions here. And now let's see what that looks like. Smooth. Okay, so now I'm going to take this canopy and I'm just going to scale it up a little bit and move it a little bit just so it fits a little bit better inside that opening. Okay, and I want to have a little bit of a gap there. It's going to be a little bit more realistic to have that. Okay, so now we have our canopy. And our seat and everything is still inside. Now if you want to set up your pivot, you could take this canopy and I would just go ahead and group. Add a group to this. I don't know if you can see this, but it's right down here and it's Alt-G, but we can just group that together and create a null. Now you can see the center of the null is right there. So what we can do is go ahead and manipulate the pivot. So enable axis modification. So we'll go ahead and click on that. And then I'm going to move the axis kind of right up here. Okay. Now we're still modeling. We're not doing any sort of rigging. So I'm just going to roughly get it into position. And then when Delano does the rigging, he can decide how he actually wants to orient this. But just so we can, for modeling purposes, be able to see it and open it up, I'll go ahead and move it into position there. Okay, now I'll turn off axis modification. And then we can take this null and we'll call this something like canopy pivot. And then when we rotate, we can pivot the canopy up like that. Okay, so you're still able to kind of see what's inside. And you can close it down. All right, so now that we've got the canopy detailed a little bit more, let's go ahead and add some pieces on the side which are going to serve as sort of pivots for the wings. So we'll go ahead and do that next.